Bipolar Barbie here, and today I wanted to do a tutorial on how to give your children an anxiety disorder. If you want to cripple your children for life and make sure that they have low self-esteem, severe crippling anxiety, might even turn into something like agoraphobia, where they are so terrified of people they don't leave their house, or borderline personality disorder, where they exhibit self-harming behaviors and suicidal thoughts purely because they are so terrified of rejection and being abandoned because they don't feel like anybody has ever loved them. Why would a child feel like they're not being loved? Well, very simple reason is that if you can't do anything right, then how could anyone love you? Now, it's very simple to do this, and I just want you guys to know, if this is something that you want to do to your children, then I'm going to teach you how to do that. And if you don't, then please do the opposite to everything that I say. Now, how am I qualified to talk about this? Well, my parents are experts in provoking anxiety in children and creating anxiety in a child that has haunted me all through my adult years. Now, the easiest way to do this, I guess, is to just watch your children like hawks. Hover around your children, make sure that they know that you're watching everything that they do, and comment on everything that they do. Comment on the way that they brush their teeth, comment on the way that they get dressed, comment on the way that they walk, comment on the way that they talk. Just literally have something to say about everything that they do. And I had an interesting experience with my mother this morning, which literally I was already anxious because she was hovering around my room, and that's just a permanent thing that always happens. And she picked up, I guess, like a pin that was somehow, I guess, in my doormat, and she said, "There's a pin in your doormat. How did that get there?" And I went, well, actually, that was probably a bit more like curious and shocked. The way that she said it was a lot more accusing and like negative. And I just kind of ignored her, but I was doing something at the time and I dropped what I was doing. Everything fell on the floor and I was picking it up and I was physically shaking because I was that anxious. And she said something else and I dropped everything again. I've been trying to communicate to them that the way that they interact with me and their just existence in my life turns me into a nervous wreck. I'm not blaming anyone here. It's just an observation. This is a fact. So I realized that this is something that has been going on my entire childhood. I am so terrified of being judged, of being watched, and I am constantly. I was constantly growing up. And when you comment on what your children are doing, you really want to make sure that you don't give any positivity whatsoever. You want to make sure that it is always negative. And I think my parents are very effective at this. They tend to pose everything as like a question. You might not think questioning what your children is doing can be detrimental. The trouble is the way that you interact with your children, the way that you view them and the way that you talk to them is the way that they will learn to talk to themselves. So if you're questioning everything that they do, it's no surprise that as adults, they will question everything that they do. And I think what you want to make sure that you do as well is, no positive reinforcement whatsoever. You want them to make sure that they know that everything they do is wrong, but you want to make sure that you have no basis, no guide as to what is right, so that they will grow up always feeling like absolutely everything that they do is wrong. And they can't do anything right because they were never taught what is right. They were only taught that everything they do is wrong. Questioning what your child is doing can be a very, very strong tool. If you want to give your child an anxiety disorder. I think it is sort of how you pose that question. People don't realize the impact that their tone of voice and other methods of communication that extend beyond a spoken language can actually influence someone, particularly children who are still learning how to communicate with words. I think as adults we kind of forget that communication is really not about spoken language. It's about body language and interaction and so much more. But children are really tuned into that while their language skills are still developing. So when you are asking a question, I mean, you can tell when someone's asking a question out of curiosity, when it's coming from a sincere place, a yearning to understand. You know, I wonder why it is you're doing it that way. I'm curious. Versus, why are you doing it that way? With a tone that implies negativity. I mean, it just literally radiates negativity. It implies that you are wrong, that you are doing it wrong. And if you fail to give an explanation as to why, if you fail to explain that right or wrong, or your reasoning as to why you subjectively have decided that something is negative or right or wrong, then your children are going to try and make sense of that in their mind. They're going to put a reason as to why mom thinks that is wrong, or why dad thinks that what I am doing is wrong, because they can't comprehend it. And really, watch my other videos on right or wrong, because it is just a subjective opinion. When it comes to something like eating a mango, like the video that I did, I mean, I was eating a mango, it was going into my body and I was digesting it. So technically, I was succeeding and eating a mango, but apparently it was wrong. The way that I was doing it was wrong, but by definition, I was still eating the mango. And I think when you have such a black and white view of wrong or right, when it is so clear cut and it's not, that is how you get children who are split, who question, am I a good or bad person? And you are instilling that in your child every time you tell them that a behavior that they are exhibiting is either good or bad. And when there is no reason for that, when it is not a moral crisis, when it is just something that they are doing, it just, I don't know, it really blows my mind. And I think it's important to remember, again, with the unspoken language, that when you have negatively criticized your children enough, simply walking into a room, or I get this all the time from my father, I will like catch him standing in my doorway looking at me, and I will look at him and then he'll walk away. Or I'll look at him and I'll just get this eye roll or a sigh, or you can see the judgment written all over his face. He doesn't have to tell me that I'm a piece of shit. He doesn't have to tell me that I'm doing the wrong thing, because it is clear by his entire demeanor that he thinks what I am doing is wrong. And that is where, you know, I think a conflict happens with my parents, because they say we didn't do anything. Sometimes your lack of action can do the most harm. If you have never told your child that the way they have done something is good, then regardless of whether you had told them that it is wrong, they still don't know. It's not clear. You need to be quite specific, but specific on the positive and negative equally, not just very specific on the negative and very vague on the positive. And I'm not saying that I never got positive attention from my parents. I did, but that's a whole other issue itself, because the positive that I got from them, the validation, was only ever when I won an award at school, was only ever when I was being celebrated in the community for an achievement that I had made. So my self-esteem and my self-worth was heavily attached to the things that I had done. It really had nothing to do with me just as a person. The only comments they ever had on the things that I did in my general life and who I was as a person were negative. So how the hell can you be surprised that I grew up feeling worthless, feeling like I could never do anything right? You know, if you, whatever you want your children to think about themselves, that's what you want to be saying to them now. So if you want them to hate themselves, go out and hate your children. If you want your children to feel like they are worthless, then neglect to value them, neglect to tell them what you value about them. Just continue de-evaluating them. Just de-evaluate everything that they do so that they will de-evaluate themselves. So I've got a lot more thoughts on this, guys, but this was just my morning rant for today. And let me know what you think in the comments below. I really hope that you don't take this tutorial seriously in the sense that you use it as ammunition to go out and torture your fucking children, because, like, I'm coming for you. But you need to understand how easy it is to cripple your children. And if you feel, I think every parent has done this at some point. And there's nothing wrong with that. What is wrong is that you don't take a long, hard look at yourself. You don't question your parenting style. And if your child is exhibiting signs of trauma, signs of low self-esteem, if they have grown up and they've been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, or they have severe anxiety conditions, you know what, guys? You have probably been an influencing factor in that. And as much as no one wants to admit that they're a bad parent or feel like a bad parent, you kind of have to. Because I don't think it's ever too late. I think it would mean the absolute world to me if my parents came to me and said, okay, we understand. We understand that the things that have happened and the way that we parented might not have been the best. And we just want you to know that that was all unintentional. I'm not saying it was intentional. But if they had came to me, and I don't even need an apology, but like acknowledgement would be cool. It's never too late to fix that. As a parent, you can go to your adult children and say, hey, you know what? I'm proud of who you are as a person. And if that was like the first time that it ever happened, you have no idea how much that could mean to a person, how much of a lasting impact that one simple action can have. That one simple positive action can definitely negate years and years of negativity. So, let me know your thoughts, guys. Thank you for listening to my video, and I'll see you next video.